Hello and welcome to RuboGubo. Today I will be showcasing off my rocket. Now last video was supposed to be showcasing this rocket. However, sadly due to absolute terrible frames, I've had to, remodel it into the A2. So this is the second version in the A2 rocket machine, which is basically the classic rocket, but in red. Now, if you want to, let's jump straight into seeing how, showcasing it. So, it is still incredibly laggy, but not as laggy as the last design, simply because I've cut down on the amount of rotors there are, and so on. It does have a rather large entrance ramp, so, bear that in mind if you're creating a launch pad for it. I didn't, and I had to do some awkward extensions. Anyway, to close the door, you press 2, and that ends this quite nice closing feature. Also on the top of the door, or the cab door, I don't know, you'll see special sensors. They are for later on. Once the door has closed, we will press, hopefully 3 will be pressed, and that will launch it off to space. So 3, 2, 1, and we can launch. It does have a minimal amount of thrusters, but, just enough to get it going. Now, as we leave the facility, sometimes this rocket does, scrap mechanics, as I mentioned earlier, does not like big things, and therefore, sometimes this happens. It is only a few degrees, so it won't, send you off to the moon or anything, but it is quite far, so, just bear that in mind if you're on the stretch home. And although it is only a few degrees over a huge space we have, scrap mechanics is a lot. Anyway, as we start to approach the ceiling, I would normally activate 2, which I will, not 2, 1, which I will show here. Now, in an older version of scrap mechanics, I would show you this. Oh, and we have hit the wall. How convenient. These sensors are essentially there to activate this. However, due to how the scrap mechanics, works, now, you can't actually anchor anything to the roof, as far as I'm aware, in the way I was attempting to do it. So, it just ends up with this massive laggy mess. So, it's a shame that I'm not able to use, the front connectors, but, I suppose it's more realistic. I mean, it's not like in real life you would just hit an invisible wall. Anyway, it's also rather laggy right now, simply because scrap mechanics is incredibly confused. You can just see, the lag. So, yeah. Anyway, it does go pretty quick, so, yeah. It is sadly a bit slow on the coming down, and also I would warn you that, like I said earlier, you do go off course pretty bad. So just be careful of that. Although, the good thing about this creation is that you land within walking's distance. So you should be able to land reasonably close to where you started from. As we wait for scrap mechanics to think, oh wait, yeah, I am going down, and stop complaining about it. Yeah. As we sink to the bottom. Anyway, yes, this contraption is in the A2 series and, could do with some improvements in terms of lag, but it's simply the components that it has. I mean, it has 33 pistons on its own, so I can understand why it's not particularly happy with this. If I was to recreate this, I'd definitely cut down on the pistons and maybe make it less cool and more functional, because that's, as you can see here, what I went for. Well, hopefully looks cool. Anyway, this is what I went for, but it's sadly, no, it didn't really work. As we continue down, yeah. Oh, and also, if you're wondering, why didn't you just implement a steering system? That's for the B series, to be honest. This is A series is more for the classical rockets, you know, the long and pointy things with a bit of extra stuff and apart from fuel stuffed in them. The B series will be a bit more practical, you know, the stuff you might start a sky base with if you were to do that. You know, if I was to create that, and this is just plans for the future, and they're not concrete, it would probably essentially detail, we'd have the mothership with bays so that you can spawn in more ships that would still be level with the mothership main floor, and then you could fly those bays about, and it would all be hovering through thrusters because, as you saw before, the invisible wall is not it does not like things hitting it apparently. It may also be the speed. I mean, it has worked with some contraptions, but again, then you have the problem that it becomes basically impossible to actually tell that, you know, you're near the wall, apart from maybe timings. But that's tedious and boring, and nobody likes tedious and boring stuff. So, as we approach, you can see that for all the lag it creates, it does land relatively close to where you launched it. As you can see the facility down there. So, you know, although laggy and doesn't really perform its main function, which is essentially hit the top of the world properly, at least you won't have to walk too far to actually get back home. Anyway, as we approach back down. Also, a lot of you, well, not a lot of you, some people have been asking what those big round boilery things with pipes coming out of them are. They're just decoration made by the devs, so yeah. Although, you know, at some point I might take them over and turn it maybe into a reactor. So anyway, as we approach land, you will get another massive lag spike. Sorry for that, but yeah, that's just it. Anyway, I really do hope that you enjoyed it. It's a bit longer than the ones previous because I realised it was very short. So, this is RuboGubo, and I'm out. Goodbye.